Afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our first webinar of 2022. And we're absolutely thrilled to be joined by David Nugent, who is Senior Manager of International Payroll with Cloudera, and his colleague Hannah Hunady, I want to make sure I got that correct, who's also working in the global payroll with David at Cloudera. Also like to introduce you to, and most of you know, Mary Holland, our Chief Customer Officer here at Payslip, and Mary will be moderating today's discussion. So before we get started, quick housekeeping. So the webinar is being recorded, and that recording will be available to you all after the event. We have a good lot of people on here today, so everyone's going to be muted except for our panel. Any questions or comments, you can post them in the Q&A box at the end, and we will have a section allocated at the end for those questions, so we can go through them then. We'll also have a couple of poll questions throughout the webinar, and just as we get started, I'm going to launch the first poll so we can all get an idea of the current global payroll reporting that's available to everyone attending today. So just one moment. So it's actually all polls, of course, all polls are gonna go at the same time. So if we could just answer number one, that would be okay.
So on question number one, which one do you think, David and Kim, what do you think the reporting, how would you just think our audience is going to describe their current reporting requirements?
I think it'll be a close tie between the first two options. I think some countries might have some robust reporting, but for the most part, it'll be very sporadic.
What about you, Hannah? I know you support LATAM, and so that may be slightly different from David, but so what do you think from the LATAM view of the world?
Oh my goodness, I think it's definitely more on the limited reporting, and it requires a lot of manual upheaval to bring things together to get that global view on and get that visibility that you need.
Right, I probably have to agree with you, especially you probably see the major difference between the US and LATAM and supporting the Americas. You probably sometimes wish that you had the view from the US side of the Americas than the LATAM. So it does look like, David, as you predicted, we some reporting but restricted range. So it probably requires some different pieces of getting that big picture view. So let's go ahead and get started. So we'll end the poll. Aoife will be back with some more polls, and we'll just answer the next poll if you didn't go through it. I noticed a few people have already answered, but we'll go through that. So today I'm excited to be joined by David and Hannah, who both work at Cloudera. In a few minutes, David and Hannah will be sharing their global payroll job responsibility. Both will be highlighting the global payroll big picture insights and how they strategically delivered to their organization. Cloudera was recognized as the global payroll team in 2021 by the Global Payroll Association. Congratulations, David and Kim, you were part of that team. So let's hear about our award-winning team. So David, can you please tell us about Cloudera, where it's headquartered, in Heart and Silicon Valley, and how your team is organized?
Absolutely, thank you, Mary. So Cloudera is a big data company, and as Mary said, our headquarter is in Silicon Valley, so our head office is in Santa Clara. So payroll at Cloudera then it's split between the Americas team and then the EMEA and APAC team. In the US, that's headed up by Kim Powers, and Hannah here today is part of Kim's team, and then for EMEA and APAC, it sits with myself. So we're based in Cork in Ireland, and in Singapore as well. In total for Cloudera, we have around 3,000 employees in approximately 30 countries. So it's quite a big footprint for us to be in, and it's kind of 50-50 between EMEA, APAC, and the US teams. Yeah, that's us in a nutshell. We do from a payroll processing perspective. We do payroll accounting as well, which not too many payroll teams would do. So we do go from the input stage right up to the accounting and reconciliation stage as well.
Okay. And yesterday, David shared with me, he joined in 2017, if I remember it correctly. And one of his first challenges was he was going to start taking over some of the payrolls in Europe as he got hired into that role. His manager, Stephen, was doing those payrolls and was happy to pass them on to David. But one of the things David did is he took a trip over to the America team that sits in Silicon Valley, and they had been doing some of those payrolls. They worked together and collaborated, and David took the challenge to say, can we meet monthly to just go over payroll items? And that kind of opened up to where they are today. And that comes to you, Hannah, with the question, how does your team collaborate with the team in the Europe and also APAC? And your team in America support the US, Canada, and some LATAM countries. So how do you coordinate that collaboration that is very strong in your organization?
Yes, open communication is key. And because of this, we have such a great partnership with David and his team. And as you mentioned, the relationship started with Kim and David. And from there, it just clicked and it flows down to all of our team members. So we have very open form of communication, whether it's via email, Slack, a Zoom call, whatever the method is, we have that open communication. It also helps that we all have such a proactive mindset and we collectively approach opportunities for improvement. So even like when we've accomplished huge success, such as launching a global payroll processing and reporting platform with Payslip, we still look for areas to improve. So having Payslip enables us to continue to look forward and make progress because we're not spending as much time processing our international payroll.
Thank you, Hannah. And I saw that collaboration, and not only do they collaborate on, payroll related items, they collaborate on what's the best way to process and get the tickets into systems, how do they communicate with senior leadership and on that reporting. So the team is always challenging themselves to do better. And that is one of the things that I think is part of the relationship and the partnership that's been built, which is wonderful. So David, prior to selecting a global payroll technology platform, how will you manage your data? And how did leadership get the big picture? With 20 plus locations across the globe, how did you communicate that, and what was actually going on prior to making a selection of a global payroll solution?
Yeah, so I suppose for the first part of that question, our data was mainly managed in countless spreadsheets, with spreadsheets for everything. So we had input spreadsheets and master files, which were in the same kind of format for every country. They had the same look and feel, but obviously every country is different, so there was slight nuances there. And then on terms of our payroll processing, we would send inputs in various spreadsheet formats. Some of them were in our payroll vendor in their format, and some of them were just ours. Our master files converted into input sheets, and the same then on the return from our payroll vendors. As you can imagine, in nearly 30 countries, every single vendor has a different format to deliver their gross nets to us. So our review and approval process then again had the same kind of look and feel in the approval packs, but obviously was different on account of all of the various different spreadsheets that we get from our vendors. And the same then on the accounting piece. So when we were creating our month-end accounting entries, we had spreadsheets, the gross net spreadsheets, and then various different formulas to make sure we had the right cost center. We pull in a report from our HR system, and have pivot tables. Then we're using VLOOKUPs, and it was quite a laborious task to create a payroll journal every month. And then for me as the approver of those journals, again, all the formats had to be checked. It took a lot of time to really get into the workings behind the journal entries, and make sure that all the department codes are right and the accounting codes were correct and everything. So it was all in spreadsheets. We we no real central location for reporting or anything like that. If we were asked to provide comp data or put a specific bonus type or something like that, it involved us going to 30 different spreadsheets and pulling that information together ourselves. So what we started doing was we created these annual reports, which were basically just our own master files put together in a 12-month format. It was not ideal because obviously it's open to error. We could put something in the wrong column, or the columns could shift if you had a new pay element. So it took a lot of minding as well to keep those formats correct. So it served its purpose, but it wasn't working. The company was getting bigger. There was more requests coming for payroll data, and we were able to turn them around, but I was never fully confident in the data on them as a result of it being such a manual process. So I suppose we're in Cloudera, we're quite lucky that in the finance org, because payroll sits in finance in Cloudera, we've been kind of tasked with looking for technology to help us in our roles, whether that be RPA or some sort of automation or a bot or something that can help us, or just technology with integrations, which is what Payslip brought to us. So I'm not going to say it was an easy sell on account of that to get Payslip to Cloudera, but it certainly helped because all of our senior leaders within finance were very supportive of any kind of technology that could help us in our day-to-day jobs. So it was really kind of a no-brainer for Cloudera to go with Payslip and give us that centralized technology platform for us to collate all of our inputs, would have standardized output reports for reviewing and approving. And our GL files as well were generated by the system. So all of a sudden, a lot of that kind of mundane work had been kind of taken away from us and been automated through the use of the technology. Also with the senior leaders in finance, I have to say that for some reason I feel blessed at Cloudera, because a lot of companies payroll is kind of pushed away in the background, and I think I said previously, payroll kind of thought of like the gremlins working away in the background, and you shouldn't be seeing them unless something goes wrong. But in Cloudera, I don't think we've ever really felt like that. I think the senior leaders have always had a very in-depth understanding of the complexities of payroll. They understand it's not the pushing a button and payroll is calculated. They understand all the different tax constraints in every country, and they've often commented to us they don't know how we do our jobs with all the different tax jurisdictions that we're in, and obviously then coming with that then all the different calculation methods and different rules for taxable benefits and stuff in countries. Like the list is endless, but there is an appreciation there from our leaders that understand that, and they're supportive of anything that they think will make our lives easier. So we as I said, we are blessed at Cloudera as a payroll team to have that support from everyone.
Well, so, and kind of in summary, we're spending a great deal of time with our great friend Excel, that we all know works, but it does require oftentimes frustration when you can't deliver that report. From a senior leader wants a report or just a number that they're going to use to base results on, and not being able to deliver that is frustrating to the person preparing all the sheets. But you could make mistakes, as you said. It's very easy to make mistakes. There's a lot of data there, and then you really recognize the one thing that I think is really important, that you recognize the importance and the value of the information that payroll has, and you also have built your team to be a strategic player in the organization. So I personally have seen it, and I also have seen it in the way that you're structured with the Americas and Europe and Asia. But the coordination and the piece of the leadership that you and the America team leader has done has been important. And then you've also been able to support that. So I wanted to talk, David, a little bit about when you kind of decided that you needed to solve for your solution and maybe retire a little bit of Excel. How did you go about looking for a technology solution. And what were some, could you just kind of share some of the pointers that you might suggest to somebody else if you had to talk to leadership and introduce something that was new and would cost, the cost of a new technology. And also you kept your in-country providers. So what was that, how you looked at that driving piece?
Yeah, I think that was one of the main pieces for me. We had some really good vendors in countries that we didn't really want to move away from, and our employees were used to their payslip formats and how they do things as well, and they were performing excellently, and there was no real issue with them. So as the old saying goes, like if it's not broke, why fix it? So the payroll vendors were doing very well, and we wanted to keep them. So in the last couple of years, I've seen companies like Payslip pop up that sit between the company and the ICPs to standardize those processes, and I kind of got a bit excited about that. I suppose Cladera being a young enough and tech company, we're kind of a lot of our systems, well, all our systems are cloud-based, but we do have some that are from startups, and we always feel that startups are kind of all trying to improve and better themselves and get ahead, and that's kind of where we are as well as a company. So it kind of sat well with me rather than going with one of the aggregators. It just, that wasn't really for me. I've used them in other companies and they're fine, they have a place, but it wasn't for Cladera. And again, I think our senior managers in finance as well had the same kind of opinion as I did, that we didn't really want an aggregator. We wanted kind of an over tech savvy and a nimble company. And I said our key thing was that we keep our ICPs. And then on the selling points, I suppose, would be standardizing our process. So we had standardized as much as we possibly could with our spreadsheets, but we knew there was anomalies out there in some countries, especially when it comes to kind of some of the accounting entries were being treated differently in some countries. So we even came up with like a payroll chart of accounts was one of our plans for the future with this system, and also then just to have visibility on our process. Again, we had a spreadsheet that tracked what dates we send payroll input on, what date we got it back, when we approved it, and we wanted to kind of get out of spreadsheets and get more into systems. And it was all about our data. We have Workday is our HR system. It's set up quite well. We have a lot of data in there. We have more to put in there, don't get me wrong, but why not use that data? It's in there. Why were we pulling it up from a system into an Excel sheet and then transfer it to another Excel sheet to send it to a payroll vendor? So it was just, again, it was all spreadsheets, and moving on to a more standardized process. And as well as the company is growing, like adding extra headcount, adding new countries even, we wanted a system that could easily support that, and turn that on quite quickly if we need to expand in a region. So the support that we get from a company like Payslip has been invaluable to us. It's been really, really fantastic.
Okay, so I think we're ready. Thank you, David. I think we're ready for our second poll. If you could bring that up for us.
Sorry, I'm on mute. I think I'm just going to share the results of all three because it seems
to
okay coming up. So we can just focus on question 2 for the moment. So
okay,
because they were all answered. So we have question 2 was does your payroll data process support bigger picture insights and reporting? So we can see there that most people have non-standard pay elements, so making it harder to drill down into the detail. And then both, you can see the second two. So we have a good lot of people, 31% of people data is not standardized. I thought they were going to say is standardized. And different data, different systems is a major challenge.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised by these results. I think the standardization and trying to get and Hannah's kind of agreeing, I know, is that the different systems is really the challenge. It goes back to our friendly Excel, as David was talking about. How we get them all into a nice standard report is definitely a challenge. And it looks, when we look at 38, 31%, we really have, this is just this one question, how they look at the bigger picture to get the data processing results out and what you really want from the organization. So global reporting in that big picture or visibility is really big. So Hannah, my next question is, payroll processing in LATAM is challenging. I think everybody, if you had to ask, what is a hard country? There's never any easy country, I don't think. Sometimes people will say Dubai because there's no withholding tax. But LATAM has many challenges, right? We have many pieces. So what were some of the problems that Cloudera was facing and hoping to solve for by going to a payroll technology solution?
LATAM is definitely challenging. It's important also to note, while Spanish is the dominating language for that region, each country has its own dialect, and Brazil is simply its own being. So when I took over the LATAM payroll, we had a lot of pay codes in local language only. So we were taking that hurdle and accepting things as fact and trusting our ICPs at the time. So during our launch of Payslip, we were asked to get the local language and English translation for each code. Having both the local language and the English translation has improved our relationship with our ICPs. I can communicate clearer using local language if I find a variant or I have a question on why a certain code is behaving a certain way. It makes it so much easier to have that conversation with our ICP to be like, please explain why this is behaving this way. Since going live with Payslip, we've had a transition of payroll processors in Mexico and Brazil. And as you know, when you get a new payroll processor assigned to your account, it can be extremely daunting because you have no idea what cross-training was completed. Having our codes clearly defined made our process super simple and super easy. By standardizing our form in each Latin country, we've streamlined our review process. Each country has the same format, same review process, and it makes it breeze for internal control review.
Well, Hannah, you highlighted an important thing kind of on the ICP view. You highlighted kind of the benefits of that communication, because we all don't speak, there's many languages, even if we did speak some Spanish or Portuguese down in Brazil, it probably wouldn't be efficient enough to have a regular conversation with them about certain things, but having the ability for them to see their local element name and their local language, and then you have the English, you can then better have a conversation. Do you think it helped them too in their processing and delivery of the payrolls to Cloudera?
Oh, absolutely. We've experienced a lot of improvement in just the overall understanding. We have a better understanding of taxes in Costa Rica. I'm getting a better understanding of taxes in Brazil. I'm able to refine my skill set because I can communicate clearer with the ICPs.
Okay. And then do you think that the workflow piece has helped them to understand the delivery piece and know that they're expecting this item to come and here's their due date, which kind of streamlines everybody's workflow so there's no surprises in an Excel spreadsheet to look on a calendar, right?
Absolutely, yes. So having those deadlines there makes it super clear for them. And so instead of me chasing them month to month and be like, where's my payroll processing? Where are my calculations? It's delivered straight away.
Okay. And then I'm going to ask David and Hannah this question because I know they work together on choosing the global service delivery model, picking a technology platform solution. You had to work, first of all, across both teams to be aligned because you were presenting it as a business case and a change. So how did you go about doing that and working together so you had the information to communicate? So what did you prepare and what was your kind of path to presenting that to leadership?
Sure. So I suppose I'll start off that my first step to this process was meeting with the Payslip team in our office back when we could go into offices, if you can imagine that at this stage. Met the Payslip team for a product demonstration, which was really, really good. And then I reached out to Kim and Hannah then, who I asked would they like to see a presentation as well for, so I'm thinking about this for me in APAC, did they want it for Latin America as well? And then we set up a demo in our Santa Clara office as well. So that was kind of our starting point, and it kind of got our global payroll process owner was there as well, so it kind of got everyone a bit excited about this. And then we kind of started over the next couple of months then working through different scenarios and asking different questions about your product and about our payroll and stuff like that, and coming together with that proposal. So after a couple of months then I presented to the senior leaders in finance. So on that call I had some data points, I had costings on there as well, and I also you Payslip very kindly gave me a demo login that I was able to do a live demonstration of the system, and as I said, I think once they saw the benefits of the system to make our lives easier, so they could very easily see that on the product demo, compared to us opening Excel sheets in Box in various different folders to get data. It was all there in the one system. I don't know, Hannah, do you want to talk about your experience of that demo and what you thought of the system?
Sure, yeah. Once you showed us the system and you had such confidence when you were demoing this, and you were like, this is such a good solution, this is so thorough, and this has so much information. And then the follow-up meeting with Mary in it, I told Kim, I said, Kim, Mary is a legacy in our community. Like, if she says something, and David has so much trust in this program. If David says yes, then I say yes, because I'm behind this, and knowing that someone from our own community was involved in the development of this program really helped validate the decision. So anytime I could say anything about it, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, let's do this. It was very exciting.
Well, David, I want to really highlight the fact that you demoed the system to leadership, right? Because we can all have the client come in and do the demo, but you never really know how intuitive it is to do it yourself, right? And so you intuitively were able to do that. Is that report easy to run or hard to run? Where's my data? And so by taking that approach, it was very beneficial, because leadership then could see that you didn't spend hours and weeks and months preparing to be able to do the presentation. You were able to use the system and see what the value was, right? So they visually, sometimes you can do a lot of presentations and PowerPoints, but visually sometimes just solves, and they easily see. And we're able to ask you questions, and you were able to walk through that. And just the coordination that you did on the project, because I was involved with it, pulling in, of course, Hannah and Kim, and the American lead payroll manager on that side, but also pulling in the your finance manager that does all of the accounting piece, Lisa. That really kind of pulled in. She had challenges that she was interested in. Like we all know, there's different things we're interested in. You were able to show to the leadership what this could do for each of the parties that were involved, from LATAM over to our friends over in Singapore. You were able to meet those needs. So thank you for sharing that piece. So Hannah, I'm going to ask you some questions on standardization and unifying your global first model. So we know it's important to project success. What steps did your team work to achieve that standardization and set up that harmonization so that you could have a global payroll technology platform that was going to work for reporting? So you want to share a little bit about that, and then the role that you guys connected with the finance manager to get things set up, standardized for your element classifications, and also that wonderful general ledger file.
Sure thing. First and foremost, a unified front for progress from all teams involved and support from upper management was the major key to our success. There were two big projects launched at the same time for us. One was to review our pay codes and general ledger, and the other was to build an integration between our HRIS system, Workday, and Payslip. The integration between Workday and Payslip was a partnership between our payroll team, our HRIS team, and Payslip. We built out UAT testing for each country and reviewed each testing scenario. We tried so hard to break the integration with different test cases to ensure that we had a strong integration. Having this integration has reduced the potential for human error and overall reduced our processing time. Instead of manually keying in data changes, new hires, bonuses, all that, we just now validate the information that flows over. In regards to our pay codes in general ledger, setup was so intense. First, we identified all pay codes in local language and translated them into English with the help of our ICPs. At the same time, we grouped each pay code into generalized groups such as pay elements, employee deductions, and employer contributions. Building out these generalized groups began to build the infrastructure for global reporting and helped us see big picture how we globally approached pay codes. We also entered our current general ledger code that we were using for each pay code. Once this was all done, Lisa, our director of accounting, scrubbed the data to ensure that we had a unified approach to element setup and standardization of general ledger accounts. In partnership with Payslip, she identified every single variance in how we had items coded, which naturally we had some variances. Meetings were held to review these variances, and it was decided how we would globally approach these codes. Once the data was scrubbed, we brought the details into Payslip, and now we can generate global payroll reporting in just a few clicks.
Well, thank you, Hannah. And so, yes, I think the approach that you used, first of all, to pull it all together, get it all in one platform to look at, and then having somebody from accounting or finance look at those codes and the classification so that the pieces that you wanted it standardized for your reporting piece. So you did a really fantastic job on that. But then you also looked at those account codes where you had variances and why did that happen? Sometimes you never know why you ended up with that code in Costa Rica and a different code, maybe over in Singapore or Ireland. So getting that all uniformed definitely helped for the classifications for the reporting inside Payslip, but it also helped the general ledger and the finance team when they see the information that's going into that general ledger code, they know exactly what's going into that code. Or if there's questions, they can easily come back to the payroll team and say, what are you coding into that particular account? So there's a good way to do kind of cross-check, get the information that you need back and forth. And so pulling in somebody from the accounting and finance team was huge. It was a huge piece to bring that stakeholder into the piece. And then you also met some of her goals, and she can strategically then support Cloudera in the future. So that was great. David, once you got all that work done, what did you do to make sure that nobody undoes all that work and put a different account code in or decide to add a new element? So how did you work on that standardization?
Yeah, so we have kind of a ticketing and workflow tool called @Spoke, which it runs off machine learning and some AI as well. So we actually set up a workflow within there, so that if any of the team had a new pay element to be set up, or even existing elements that need to be set up in that particular country, they would go to the workflow in @Spoke and fill in all the questions which actually mirrored the pay element set up within Payslip, and I would then go to route for approval once all the details are in there, which then I would then check back to our master payroll chart of accounts and just make sure that we had the right classification and subcategories and account code in there for that particular global pay element, which really helped. And we have gone through some changes company in the last couple of months, so some of our elements have changed on a global basis, and it's been super easy to make those changes with Payslip. So I think once we went live with all of our countries and we kind of got access to the reporting and our started looking at the reporting, it was then we kind of really realized the importance of the standardization and keeping all of the data in the same format in every single country. So that's how we did it. We set up an approval workflow in another system to just make sure everything's right before we set it up in Payslip.
Yeah, extremely smart, because you spent a good deal of time collaborating between the teams and discussing, right? So part of it is just discovering what happened and why would we classify something in that particular piece.
Yeah,
but I think, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, we actually, when we were reviewing the payroll chart of accounts and all the different elements, we even set up some new account codes because we just felt certain items were being accounted for correctly under the correct account code in the accounting system, but we just felt it warranted to be on its own separate account code for visibility purposes and have a bit more of a granular data. So not only did we harmonize everything, but actually set up some new codes as well, just to make things a little bit more transparent.
Well, it definitely helped you to get that big picture view from the general ledger perspective, because you also did general ledger files for each of your countries. And so you had that standard approach, so that when the GL file was generated and it went into the general ledger, you knew that work was already there and in the appropriate code, because you had done all of the legwork to get it all set up. And sometimes that work does take a little time, but it definitely pays off, especially when you see the results. So when we talk about results, Hannah, what were 2 or 3 things that you would say that you on the America team can say, wow, this was great, I was able to provide X now and I can support leadership?
I think that our automation of GL is such a huge win, specifically this month. We had a team member leave, and so the LATAM accounting fell back on me in a very short time frame. So it was super easy to just grab the automated GL and upload quickly and efficiently. And so that to me has been such a huge win for us.
Well, and then you brought up the fact of somebody leaving. So that's the whole standardization and the visibility and having a technology platform so you know what's happening all the time. You definitely can then see what the responsibilities of that particular person that was on the team, what they were, and how you can maybe find somebody from another team until you can find a replacement, or what can you do with that role. Do you have ability to assign a few different tasks to other people, and you get the visibility and the workflow items. And of course, with the standardization, you know what the processes are. It's not a surprise to somebody if they were possibly doing Costa Rica and now they have some steps in Brazil. They know what the flow process is because they've used the system. So David, what about you? What are some of the couple items that you think that you brought to leadership? And then with that, I wanted you to kind of share what the leadership team, after you did a review, what they kind of thought about the technology platform and how it positioned Cloudera for the future.
Yeah, I suppose one of the main things will be on the reporting side. As I said there at the start of the call, we do payroll accounting as well within the payroll team. So and we work with Lisa then on a quarterly basis for variance analysis. So Payslip have a very nice changes report that you can see what payments have changed from one month to the next, one period to the next. And that's something that we as a payroll team need to comment on a monthly and more detailed, even on a quarterly basis. And it's very easy now to go into Payslip and run that report, and you can see why was sales commission higher this quarter compared to last quarter, and you can very easily see the answers to those questions in there. In fact, our financial year end is coming up in a couple of days' time, so we'll be very busy running those reports probably next week and the week after. So we're looking forward to that, because this is our first year end with Payslip as a system. So we're very excited to get looking at that. And then I suppose, and similar to what Hannah said with somebody like leaving the team, like I always feel that if one of the team was out sick on a very short notice or something, every country, every payroll in Payslip has the same look and feel to it. I feel if Hannah hopefully won't be out sick tomorrow morning, but if she was, one of my team could actually, I think, process her LATAM payrolls without ever having seen them before. And I think Hannah would probably feel the same about processing one of the EMEA or APAC payrolls, not having seen them, the system looks, feels the exact same. The system looks after the notifications to the ICPs and vice versa. So you don't need to know the contact there. You can just work away in the system and the system will do a lot of that work for you. So that's been a huge, I suppose, worry reliever for me as a manager. It's always there at the back of your mind. What if somebody like that leaves suddenly, or it's just out of the office on a sudden basis? What do you do? It's very hard to pick up various different spreadsheets and put all this data together and then find an email address for an ICP and send it off. So with Payslip, it does away with all that worry. And same then on the accounting side. Again, as we know, some countries have differences for accounting, but again, with Payslip having the GL files automated, you don't have to worry about that. Once the gross to net is absorbed, the system does it for you, and then you just upload it into your finance system. So they are the key wins for me after having this system in place.
Yeah, David, you definitely brought up the piece about somebody leaving or not being in the office, and we know what the last 2 years has been with just the COVID situation. It does provide some security that you do have support and kind of a business continuity situation. You could have, we've had COVID, but it could be any situation where somebody can step in. And as we all know, payroll is mission critical, and we are very essential to making sure our employees get paid. And we all know that they appreciate, and that's why they come to work, to provide services, because at the end of the day, they're receiving their compensation. And so you're able to deliver that with the workflow. And I know you mentioned the reporting, but we also have the ability to find out in the reporting kind of where those trouble areas are. You know, why is something late? Is it something that's happening on the inside the internal payroll team, or somebody delivering it to us? We can see that sometimes happening, or maybe it's something with the ICP needing something different. So you can start that communication to start to measure, and I've seen that across your organization. So Aoife, I'm going to ask now, I know we have the last polling question that we can go over real quick, and I think
now we should be able to share it. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
You can? Great. So the question was, what do you want most from your global payroll reporting functionality? And we can see there that we have the most, top two were ability to compare costs across country in a single currency, and then real-time reporting with self-serve access.
And I would agree, probably that I like the one all of the above.
All of the above, yeah.
and I really think it's really important to be able to bring it to the exchange rate that you want. We all know our accounting teams give us the exchange rate. It's if we're delivering it in euros versus US dollars versus pounds or Singapore dollars, we can't really compare apples to apples. So that's a really big one. And we want it instantaneously, right? So the real time. We don't want to be asking to have a report delivered, because David may get a request from Stephen that says he needs this report, in this, can you bring it to euros or USD? And you don't want to say, Stephen, I'll be happy to deliver it to you in 3 days, because by that time it's probably not pertinent, and there's 20 other things that the leadership team are asking for by then. So having that real time is extremely important. So Aoife, I know that we have some questions that have come in. So do you want to go ahead and ask the panelists what the first question is?
Yeah, just one moment here. Okay, so we just had a question about who in the organization is most interested in the payroll reporting.
Yeah, so I suppose our FP&A team, and it's something we kind of want to work with them on in the next financial year, is to really start seeing what they want to see from payroll, which would be data that they've never really had before. There's only so much our finance system can tell them, because the data is just entered in there on a department cost center basis, but they may want to see on a particular line of business, or the employees of a particular manager serving a particular product. They want to see data in that format, rather than just by cost center and country. So I think that's something that we really want to work on for the next financial year. It is our FP&A team, definitely, and then That then would be ourselves as the payroll team and our wider finance and accounting team on a monthly, quarterly basis.
Yeah, I think that's a definite big point, David, on the financial planning team is that, you know, and I think it's a big surprise in some of these countries how much the employer cost is, right? The cost of employees, you have it very low in some locations, but if you're definitely in France, it's very high. And so it's a shocking number if you're adding a lot of headcount in one particular area, or if you're in that mergers and acquisition situation. So you definitely highlighted a key area. And then Hannah, do you think that on your operations teams that they're looking for some information, at least even from how well the payroll providers are performing their services, especially in LATAM, because it's an area that has complexity. So do you think that they'll be looking at some information on you, how well the employees are being serviced and making sure that they're getting their pay slips and tax forms on time?
Definitely, and it helps to understand each month if we have a delay in payroll, receiving the payroll calculation. Why is that happening? Is it communication, misunderstanding? What is it? Because we do have some complex pay elements that surprise our payroll providers, like gross up bonuses. That's not common in Latin America. So understanding that sometimes we have delays because we have to push back the payroll, and how do we improve that going forward? How do we approach the information every month to continue to improve?
Okay, thank you. Eva, you have another question for us?
Yeah, so we have a question here, and it's probably more relevant to Cloudera. So what is the type of employees you manage split between white collar and blue collar? How many factories, how many unions, and CBAs? I'm not sure what CBA is, so.
Oh, collective bargaining.
David.
Okay.
Yeah.
David, that's probably for you.
Do you want me to start?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Okay, so we are a tech company, so most of our employees are white collar, not blue collar, by U.S. definitions of those two terms. We do not have any factories in the U.S., Canada, or Latin America. We do have a collective bargaining agreement in Brazil, and thanks to COVID, it has been exceptionally delayed. We just received our 2020, 2021, and 2022 CBAs. So we are in the process of going through those. Those are a lot of fun. We do not have a union in Mexico. I know that unions are very common in Mexico, but we do not have
Okay.
Yeah, and it's very similar for EMEA and APAC. Most of our locations would be sales locations, or maybe research and development offices. Most of our employees would work remotely. We're all remote at the moment, but most of them are remote contracts, and they're mainly sales. We do have some CBAs around Central Europe, but they're not too burdensome at all. And we don't have any unions or workers' councils or anything like that at the moment. So we're below those thresholds in terms of our headcounts in regions.
Okay, and I think we have time for one more. So this is in relation to RFP. So what type of reporting requirements should be included in an RFP, and how do you know you've covered your reporting requirements thoroughly? So is that a question anyone can answer?
David, do you want?
David, I'll let you take that.
It's a tough one.
We'll let David take that and see, and I will then respond back on a few things I would think about too. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I think one of our main requirements when we were looking at companies like Payslip was our global payroll reports, where we can generate reports in a standard format for all employees or all locations globally, and just have the same look and feel to them. One of the things that we really wanted was to have, like Hannah mentioned earlier on, the local currency or the local language and the English version of it as well, to help us in our own interpretation of those reports as well. And then another big one for me would be the general ledger accounting files. Have good backup for those as well as the files themselves. So we get that with our output payroll files and our GL files, which are automated by the system.
Yeah, so in addition to that, one of the things David did was also he got to use the system, right? So he was on the system, so he got to test the reporting, and that piece is, to me, is a huge piece if you have the ability to do that, because sometimes in a demo the reports just look as easy as just snapping your fingers, but they can be a little bit more complex. So he had that ability to do that. And I always, when I was out doing consulting, I always told the client, think about the reporting that you really need in your organization, because sometimes it's unique reporting. It could be for union work, or it could be the way your financial analyst team like to see the information. If that is something you definitely need, make sure that the report can be reproduced, and have the vendor reproduce that report so that you see it, because you don't want any surprises, because that's really what you need reporting to be successful. And the needs for reporting continue all over, and the value of payroll is we are, I feel like we are gold mine. We have so much information that can help the business, and that information really helps to drive the organization to move forward. So definitely Cloudera the leadership has recognized that, your award-winning team, but also the leadership support, recognizing the payroll team and the support that you receive to move to a technology platform has been amazing. So I would like to thank you both for your insights today. You really have shared with us some great insights, really your journey that you've taken to get a global payroll technology platform, and how you've spent the time to harmonize the information. And then your end results, of course, are really in the standardized workflow and the reporting piece. And looking forward to having you come back next year to say what you've done with the financial analyst team, and how you've helped support them, and some more key insights to what you've done with the system. So thank you both.
Thank you, Mary and Aoife. It was great to talk to you all today.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you. And just for all the attendees, the recording will be available afterwards. You'll receive an email with the link, and any questions, because a couple of questions just came in there at the end that we weren't able to answer, we will answer offline directly. David and Hannah can provide those answers directly.
Sure.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.